We're starting a new play on Shakesyear today. It's new play day. We're going to dig into Mucedorus, which I'm pretty sure I will mispronounce at some point and or call it something else at some point while we were working through this play. But we are working on Mucedorus, which is a comedy. It was likely first written / performed in the 1590s-ish, which means if Shakespeare did write it, it was towards the beginning of his career, or like beginning middle of his career, but most scholars agree that he probably didn't write it. He might have added a few passages later because Mucedorus was actually one of the most popular plays of the time. It was produced more than a lot of other plays where people just really loved this one, and it was published quite a few times as well. So it's possible that in one of the later publications he added a scene, or there were some snippets that were written by him that were added into later publications. But the general consensus is that he probably didn't write this one. One of the reasons why it is attributed to the Apocrypha, though, is this is the third play that was bundled up all together and found on the shelf of King Charles II. This was found along with Fair M and Merry Devil of Edmonton. They were all tied together with a note on top that said like Shakespeare Volume 1 or whatever. But yeah, none of those plays were probably actually written by Shakespeare. They were just attributed thereto afterwards. So it's a comedy, it's a play in one act that has 14 scenes, a prologue, an introduction, and an epilogue. So if you want to think of it as a play in 17 scenes, one act, 17 scenes, you can think of it that way if you would like to. But yeah, let's kick off with the prologue, which is just said to us by the character of Prologue. So this would presumably be just somebody that comes out to sort of get the audience's attention and be like, okay, we're starting the play now. And the prologue kicks things off by saying, "Most sacred majesty, whose great deserts thy subject England, nay, the world admires, which heaven grant still increase. Oh, may your praise, multiplying with your hours, your fame still raise. Embrace your counsel. Love with faith them guide, that both as one bench by each other's side. So may your life pass on, and run so even, that your firm zeal plant you a throne in heaven, where smiling angels shall your guardians be from blemished traitors stained with perjury. And as the night's inferior to the day, so be all earthly regions to your sway. Be as the sun to day, the day to night, for from your beams Europe shall borrow light. Mirth drown your bosom, fair delight your mind, and may our pastime your contentment find." And that's the extent of the prologue. So this is an interesting opening to a play for a couple of reasons. We do often see prologues in Elizabethan and other Shakespearean and other authors' plays from that time, but oftentimes that prologue is, hey, we're going to see a story about this. Like in Merry Devil of Edmonton, which we just finished, there was a prologue that was like, let me introduce you to Peter Fable. But this particular prologue is actually addressed to the royalty in the audience. This particular play was supposedly performed both for Queen Elizabeth and for King James. So it would work for either one of them. But this prologue is kissing the royalty's butt for 15 of the 16 lines. It's saying, you're great and all of England loves you, and we hope that your fame and your glory just continue to increase, and you will leave a fantastic legacy behind you, and of course you have earned your place in heaven where you're going to be surrounded by angels, and you're so great that all of Europe is borrowing your light because you are like a sun to all of us, sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N. So please be happy and be delightful. And then the very last line is, and also please enjoy our play, and then runs away. So it's a different structure and a different purpose for a prologue than we've seen, which might be why there's an introduction next, because this doesn't give us any information about the play at all. This is just saying, welcome to the theater. We are kissing the butt of the royalty that is here. we hope you enjoy what's coming up. Whether or not this was effective, I'm not exactly sure. Whether or not it was something that actually needed to be said. And I'm also not sure that it's something that would necessarily need to be performed if this play were being performed today. You could maybe skip the prologue unless you really wanted to say hi to the audience beforehand. I guess this was the equivalent of today's turn off your cell phone, unwrap your candies, all of that sort of stuff before the play actually gets going, and no flash photos. This is sort of along those lines. And the second reason why this piece is interesting is because it has a rhyme scheme to it. It has the like A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D type rhyme scheme, except the first two lines, the first line ends in deserts and the second ends in admires, which in my standard American Midwestern accent don't really rhyme. But there have been people who have studied the accent of the people in England around the time of Queen Elizabeth, and they've come up with what they call original pronunciation. Google it, find some YouTube videos on it. It's kind of cool and kind of fascinating, and to me sort of sounds like people from Ohio. But anyway, it's interesting because as they were developing original pronunciation, they would look at passages like this. They may or may not have actually used this passage from Mucedorus, but they would find passages in Shakespearean plays where it looked like things were supposed to rhyme. In this one, we have praise, raise, guide, side, even, heaven, be, perjury, day, sway, night, light, mind, find, but also deserts, admires, which don't quite fit. So what they would do is try to figure out how the vowel sounds in each of those words would need to be tweaked. This one a little bit this way, this one a little bit this way, so that they do sort of rhyme, and then extend those vowel sounds into other words of the time. And that's how they came up with original pronunciation, is by finding passages that technically probably should have rhymed at the time, but don't rhyme now, and then sort of changing the way that we speak now to figure out how it would have sounded then in order to make it rhyme, which personally I think is fascinating. I'm not at all good at original pronunciation. I haven't actually dug into and built up that accent yet, but I would love to at some point. And if any of you are really good at it, I'd love to hear about it, and maybe shoot me a video of yourself doing this monologue that has the weird rhyming non-rhyme in it. So anyway, those are why it's interesting. It doesn't really fit with what other prologues are, and also it might give us some insight into how they actually spoke back then. So a cool beginning to a play that we don't know anything about yet. So come on back tomorrow and we will figure out what the play is actually about. I'll see you then. Mwah.